In every marketplace, stories are traded just like goods. Some are forgotten before the dust settles. Others carry the weight of generations. This is one of those stories. It begins with a sentence so unusual that it silenced an entire village. In the middle of laughter, gossip, and the daily rhythm of life, a reclusive farmer stopped everything with just 5 words. Don't hurt her, sell her to me. Was it cruelty? Was it rescue? Or was it something in between, something no one could yet name? Today, you'll witness a journey told in the style of Undercover Boss, Undercover CEO, and Celebrity Undercover Stories. But this isn't a boardroom or a glossy magazine headline. This is about dignity, survival, and the quiet power of choosing kindness when the world expects silence. Azima, a girl abandoned and beaten, had no voice. Baraka, a man known for his silence, had no reputation for mercy. Yet fate brought them together on that dusty afternoon, and what followed would challenge every whisper in the village, every assumption about ownership, and every fear about love. Stay with us, because this isn't just about rescue. It's about what happens after the gate closes, when 2 wounded souls begin the long, quiet work of building something entirely new. The market was loud until it wasn't. Pots clanged, goats bleated. Then silence fell, the kind that makes the air feel heavier. A woman's hand was raised above a girl's shoulders. The crowd looked away, pretending to barter with nobody, to count coins they didn't have. It wasn't just fear. It was habit pain treated like background noise. A man stepped down from a tired horse. Boots touched dirt. His coat was plain, sun-faded, and honest. He watched long enough to tell the difference between a mistake and a pattern. This wasn't a mistake. This was an unending script written on a child's back. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just spoke with a voice that traveled farther than force. Don't hurt her, sell her to me. The sentence landed like a rock tossed into still water. In the space after the words, you could hear everything the village believed about power. Someone laughed, another gasped, and somewhere a child stopped running. The woman scoffed as if bargaining for a broken pot. Take her. See how long you last with this burden. The girl didn't lift her head. Dust clung to her knees. Her breath was shallow, the kind you learn when crying is punished. She listened but didn't dare hope. Hope is fragile. Hope gets you in trouble. The man Baraka didn't touch her. He didn't order her. He simply turned and walked. A path is an invitation. She followed, not from trust, but because behind her there was nothing left that wasn't pain. Their steps stitched a line out of the market and into open air. People whispered, "Who is he? What does he want? Why didn't he look back?" Maybe because looking back is for those who regret. Maybe because he knew change begins with forward. At the edge of the village, the road shifted from hot dust to a trail lined with stubborn trees. They grew in poor soil, inch by inch, anyway. The girl Azima kept pace with the sound of his boots, steady and unhurried. Every few breaths, he glanced sideways, not to count her steps, but to make sure the ground didn't steal her away. A wooden gate waited at the end. Old iron complained as it turned. It sounded like a door somewhere inside the world opening very slowly. "You'll sleep there," he said, pointing to a small clay house with a porch that knew how to hold a chair and a secret. "There's a bed, water, bread. If you want it, if you want it." Choice offered in 3 words. The kind of gift you can't wrap. She stepped inside. He stayed on the porch, watching a sky that couldn't decide between rain and bright sun. He had bought nothing, He had bought no one, but he had interrupted a violence that thought it was safe in daylight. The market returned to noise. The gate groaned shut. Somewhere, a story changed direction. The house smelled like firewood, toasted flour, and something unfamiliar. Safety. Not loud safety. Not banners and speeches. The quiet kind that lets you breathe without listening for footsteps. Azima sat on the edge of a narrow bed. The sheet was clean, a faded blue with threads that held more patience than she'd ever known. Her palms were raw, her knees scraped. She touched the cloth carefully, like it might vanish if she pressed too hard. Outside, Baraka moved like a man used to work and wary of words. The farm met him with the same honesty he gave it. Soil that yields only to effort. Fences that stay up only if you care. He checked the goats, the gate, the tools. Not because he distrusted the world, but because he understood what breaks when you stop paying attention. They didn't talk much. Silence sat between them like a third person. Not hostile, not warm, just present. It held the weight of two histories, one taught by abandonment, one taught by hardship, both fluent in the language of keeping things inside. Azima woke before dawn out of habit, the kind that keeps you from trouble. She swept the porch, fetched water, mended what her hands knew how to mend. No instructions, no promises, just action. Baraka left before the sun cleared the roofline and returned when the shadows grew long enough to touch the doorstep. He never told her what to do. He never told her what not to do. He let the day teach. One afternoon, a loaf of bread appeared on the table, still warm. He didn't point at it. He didn't say her name. He stepped away. Minutes later, she broke off a piece with both hands, careful not to take more than she should. She ate like someone expecting to be stopped. No one stopped her. The next day, the bread was there again. Azima noticed the way the light found the floorboards and pooled in corners. She opened windows. She rinsed the dust out of cloth, hung them straight on a line that didn't sag. A chipped cup became a place for wildflowers, yellow and stubborn as the roadside trees. She did not fill the house with chatter. She filled it with order. Order feels like love when you've lived without it. Baraka saw small things most people miss. The gate hinge oiled and quiet. The broom leaning where it won't fall. The glass jar turned into a vase. He said nothing. But one evening, an extra blanket lay at the foot of her bed. The wind had changed. Her cough was light but real. She pulled the blanket to her chin and slept without tears. Kindness rarely announces itself. It just shows up, consistent as morning. In that house of silence, two lives began to change tempo. Not with speeches, with bread left warm and blankets left close. Gossip travels faster than wagons. It moves under doors, across fences, through laundry lines. The village found a story to chew on. The quiet farmer, the rescued girl, and the question no one dared ask out loud. Why? They didn't ask him, of course. People prefer corners to confrontations. In corners, you can say anything and never test it against a face. Azima overheard fragments. Wife, servant, pity, purchase. The words scraped, even when she pretended not to hear. She kept working. Some tasks are a kind of prayer. Sweep, rinse, fold, repeat. One day, Baraka returned to find the gate repaired. The wood was sanded, the posts reset with new rope. He stood in the doorway and watched Azima tend to a small row of clay pots where green begins without permission. He didn't praise, he didn't correct, he noticed. Sometimes noticing is the purest form of respect. That night, dinner was simple. Spoons nudged plates. Wind pressed against the window and let go. Azima whispered, "Thank you," so quietly it could have been the wind. Baraka got up, fetched a fresh candle, and placed it by her bedside. He didn't say that he heard her. The candle said it for him. The next morning, the sun found her scrubbing a pot until it mirrored the light back. She could have stopped when it was clean. She kept going until it was bright. Baraka paused, a handful of feed in the crook of his arm. He recognized that kind of insistence. It was the posture of someone reclaiming what life tried to make small. The village kept whispering because villages need fuel. One woman asked at the market if the girl ran his home now. Another laughed, a thin sound that never quite became joy. Rumors shift shape when they can't find proof. They become fog everywhere and nowhere. That evening, Baraka leaned on the doorframe and said without looking directly at Azima, "They're saying I bought a wife." She froze. Shame is a heat that rises fast. He exhaled. "I bought her freedom." Nothing more. He owed no one an explanation. He offered one anyway, not to the village, but to the only person who mattered in the conversation. A small truth placed gently is heavier than a loud lie. Azima nodded. Not gratitude, recognition. Respect took root in that moment like a seed deciding the soil might just be enough. The silence returned, but it had a different shape now. It wasn't empty. It was a bridge under construction. Dignity lives in small rooms and plain words, in a repaired gate, in a candle on a nightstand, in a sentence that makes the air lighter, and sometimes in the quiet after a rumor runs out of breath. Weather is a mood with consequences. Heat lingered, then a sharp chill slipped over the hills and into the rooms. Azima coughed, a soft scratch that turned to fire overnight. By morning she didn't rise. The water sat untouched. The window stood open to a wind that didn't care. Baraka noticed not the absence of chores, but the absence of movement. He tapped the door. No answer. He pushed it open with 2 fingers, careful and slow, like truth entering a room. She lay curled, skin hot, breath thin. No speeches fit this moment. No pride either. He fetched a clean cloth, a bucket, and went to work the way he worked the land. Steady, patient, believing effort matters even when it isn't dramatic. Cool the forehead, then the neck. Spoon a little porridge. Wait, try again. He didn't know the names of remedies. He knew what it means to stay. That first night he sat in a chair by her bed and did not sleep. When fevered whispers shook loose from the edge of dreams, he said what the room needed to hear. "You're staying. No one will touch you here." On the second night she jolted awake, a bird against a window pane, unsure of the glass and the sky. He took her hand gently, and for the first time, here meant something more than a place on a map. It meant a boundary around a person. By the third morning, the fever eased, like rain finding cracked earth. Azima blinked into a new kind of light and saw a man asleep in a chair, head tipped forward, forearm a pillow against the edge of her bed. No one had ever watched over her sleep, not once. He woke with a stiff neck and brewed a bitter tea out of leaves old women say work when nothing else does. "Drink," he said. "It's awful. It helps." She obeyed and coughed and almost smiled at how terrible it tasted. In the days that followed, strength returned in pieces, color to her cheeks, steadiness to her steps, a name spoken like respect instead of a command. Baraka didn't mention the nights. He didn't keep a ledger. He kept chores. But something subtle had shifted. Bread on the table now arrived with a yellow wildflower beside it, a small sun on a small plate. Not a grand romantic gesture. A reminder that beauty is allowed, even in kitchens. Illness can be a thief. Sometimes, though, it steals the walls between people and leaves the foundation intact. Azima began to move with a quiet confidence, like someone who had been returned to herself, not by miracles, by presence. Outside, the hills breathed colder. Inside, the house warmed around the simple math of care plus time. A promise had been made without ceremony. You are safe here. Promises like that don't shout. They keep showing up. Markets sell more than goods. They sell memories you didn't know you were missing. On a Saturday, Baraka saw it hanging from a nail, a blue dress dotted with small white flowers. Not fancy, not loud, beautiful the way quiet things are beautiful. He bought it without explaining the why, because some whys don't fit into words until later. He left it folded on Azima's bed. No knock, no speech, just a simple bundle waiting to be unwrapped. She found it in the soft light of late afternoon. Fingers hovered as if touching might break a spell. She lifted the fabric and something tightened in her chest. Not pride, not fear alone, but the astonishment of being seen without being claimed. She put it away, deep in a drawer. Beauty can feel dangerous when life has punished you for wanting it. That night, while tending the stove, Baraka spoke to the air as if the words could find her anyway. If you don't want to wear it, that's fine. But I want you to know you deserve nice things. Deserve is a heavy word when you've never had permission to need. She whispered, I'm not worthy of that. He wiped his hands on a cloth and answered with the calm of someone moving a fence post. You are worthy of respect and of choice. Respect and choice. Two doors most people assume are unlocked for everyone. She lay awake hearing the hinges. Days passed. On a gray morning, she washed the dress by hand, with care usually reserved for sacred objects. She hung it on the line where the breeze told its own quiet truth. This belongs here. A few days later, she wore it. No announcement, no occasion. She cleaned the table, watered the small garden, and the blue moved like a small sky across the porch. Baraka didn't comment. He noticed. His noticing made the world wider without saying a word. She said one thing while putting jars away, speaking more to memory than to him. My mother liked dresses like this, blue ones with little flowers. He said nothing back. Some moments are better held than answered. That evening, she stepped into the yard barefoot and looked up until the stars steadied. She didn't hide from what was beautiful, not because of a dress, but because someone finally told her she had the right to choose it. Choice reshapes a person, not all at once, like a river learning a gentler course. Under the porch light, the house looked the same to a stranger. Inside, a different story had begun. The story of a woman returning to herself with every decision that was hers to make. The village kept talking. Let them. Gossip can't enter a room where the door is closed, and the people inside know their worth. The road that takes you away can make you small. The road that brings you back can make you smaller. Azima's father returned one dusty afternoon with a cough he couldn't hide and a baby he could not ignore. Sun blackened his skin. Regret hollowed his eyes. He came to the market first, because that's where shame tries to pass as need. No hands reached out. People remembered. People always remember when it's convenient. Later, he stood at Baraka's gate and whistled a weak note that died fast. Baraka looked up from a fence repair. Time had thinned the man, but not the facts. He left a daughter to survive a house that called cruelty discipline. She's here, Baraka said, arms crossed, voice even. but she is not a voiceless girl anymore. Azima stepped into the doorway wearing the blue dress, softened by many washes. Her face didn't tremble, neither did her voice. She said nothing at first, because silence can hold its own spine. The man tried a name, then a plea, then tears. Azima looked at the baby, not at him. Innocence weighs more than sin when you're deciding what to carry. She went inside, prepared a plate, set it down on a clean cloth. She fed the child with the tenderness she was never given, offered the father nothing he hadn't earned. A seat, not absolution. He ate slowly, tasting humility. When he lifted his eyes, she was gone. Back to her work, back to herself. That night, he slept on the porch with the baby on his chest and the cold pressing in. Baraka set a blanket nearby. Not for the man, for the child. By dawn, the father was gone. Some exits leave no footprints because they carry no lessons with them. Azima didn't cry. She didn't rage. Her hands washed dishes with the steady rhythm of a heart that knows the difference between closing a door and locking it. Elsewhere, a different past approached from another direction. The stepmother appeared weeks later, thinner and unadorned, hunger heavy on her shoulders. She stood under the mango tree and asked for food, with a voice that had forgotten how to be proud. Azima served her a generous plate. She pointed to a bench. "Eat there." The woman obeyed. Humiliation is a bitter spice, but it can season wisdom if you let it. When the plate was empty, the woman whispered, "I don't know why you don't hate me." Azima answered, "Because hate leaves no room to plant peace." She walked back inside. The bench held an empty dish and something else. An end that didn't need applause. Dignity chose both moments, to feed without inviting, to forgive without forgetting, to move on without dragging the past behind like a broken gate. Drought tests more than fields. It tests faith in tomorrow. Leaves drooped, earth cracked like lips in winter. The village muttered about bad seasons. Baraka didn't mutter. Azima didn't panic. They worked with that quiet stubbornness farmers share with survivors. Do the next right thing. She swept floors like she was clearing a path for fortune. She folded cloth like she was stacking bricks for a sturdier future. She planted flowers where weeds had claimed squatters' rights. The small yellow ones took root and refused to apologize for their brightness. A night came heavy with heat and waiting. The first drop sounded like a drumstick tapping a roof. Then another. Then the sky let go. Rain poured the way relief does too much, too fast, exactly enough. They stood on the porch and did not move. The water washed the dust out of the yard, and for a moment the world smelled brand new. No one spoke. Gratitude can be louder than words. A week later, green rose like a hand from the soil. Corn reached for sky. Beans mapped the fence. Even the cassava dared flowers. Neighbors called it luck. Baraka called it peace. Azima called it home without saying the word. In the field one afternoon, sweat on their brows and earth under their nails, Azima paused mid-harvest. Her question fell soft, but struck true. "Do you still want to buy me?" He set the basket down carefully, as if the ground itself needed gentleness. He held her gaze. Respect is measured in how long you're willing to stand inside a hard question. "No," he said. "Now I want to share life if you want that too." She didn't answer with a speech. She answered with a smile that had its own gravity. It said, "I am not a debt. I am not a favor. I am a person who chooses." They finished the day's work in a new silence, the kind that holds room for next steps without rushing them. That evening, the kitchen smelled like rosemary and warm bread. The house felt like it had learned a new word. Azima moved through the rooms steady, bare feet soft on the floorboards. Baraka watched not as an owner, not as a savior, but as someone who finally understood. Solitude isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of the one who understands your quiet. Outside, children shouted somewhere far away. Inside, the clock of their small world ticked in the way all true things do, soft, certain, patient. The question had been asked. The answer had been given. The future hadn't been decided. Not yet. Choice needed a moment. It deserved it. The day chose ordinary on purpose. No music, no crowd, no speeches. Just late light, a clean shirt, and the old mango tree drawing a circle of shade on packed earth. Azima sat on the porch, sewing a tablecloth that wanted to be perfect and would be enough even if it wasn't. The blue dress wasn't new anymore, and that was the point. It was hers. Baraka approached with a hat in his hands and dust on his boots, the kind of dust that says, "I work for what I keep." He didn't kneel. He didn't perform. He looked at her the way people look when they trust time more than spectacle. "I know the world rarely gave you a choice," he said, voice even. "Not here. Here, everything is yours, including the right to say yes or no." He didn't rush the next words. "I want to share life. Bread, roof, hard days, and good ones. Not because you owe me. Because walking beside you feels like the right way to walk." The porch held its breath. The mango leaves traded shadows with the wind. Azima stood. Her eyes carried the day he first said, "Don't hurt her," the night he kept vigil, the morning the fever broke, the quiet respect that never tried to own her. She answered without decoration, "I want to." There were no witnesses who needed convincing, but somehow the village knew anyway. True choices have a way of changing the weather inside a place. Days unfolded. The farm kept its schedule because harvests don't wait for romance. Yet everything tasted different, bread a touch warmer, water a shade sweeter. She read on the porch sometimes, lips moving with new words. He sat nearby, content with the sound of pages and chickens and a house that had learned to breathe. If someone asked what changed, neither would list events. They would say, respect stayed, freedom stayed, love learned to be quiet and strong. Some people in the village still whispered, as people do, but gossip starves in the presence of steadiness. The mango tree kept its shade. The house kept its light. The road kept going past the gate toward futures that don't need witnesses to be real. And if you're listening for one last reveal, you might hear this. The farmer had more than fields. He ran a quiet cooperative that protected laborers from predatory middlemen and funded small plots for women who had been told to give up. He didn't advertise it. He didn't need to. Undercover doesn't always mean costume. Sometimes it means character. Still, this is a work of fiction. The names, places, systems, and events are imagined for reflection and dialogue. Any resemblance to real persons or actual events is coincidental. We tell it this way to spark empathy, not to claim facts. So here's our gentle, open question for you. In the real world, could a choice like Azima's and a quiet courage like Baraka's happen this way, or in some other form? If not, what would need to change? And so what began with a shocking sentence in a crowded market became a story no rumor could destroy. Azima, once treated as less than human, found not only shelter but dignity. Baraka, once feared for his silence, discovered that silence can also protect, nurture, and heal. There were no riches, no glittering rewards, no headlines announcing triumph. There was something rarer, respect, a life not claimed, but chosen, a freedom not bought, but lived. Maybe that's why this story lingers long after the last word, because it reminds us that true power is not in ownership, it's in giving someone the space to stand tall. True courage is not in revenge, it's in the quiet act of planting peace where hate once grew. As you reflect on this tale, ask yourself, how many times have we, like the villagers, turned away in silence when someone needed us to speak? And if you had been there that day, would you have looked away? Or would you have listened to the sentence that stopped the market? Remember, this is a fictional story. The characters, names, and places are creations of imagination. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. But the emotions, the questions it asks of us, those are real. So tell us, could something like this happen in our world today? Could dignity and choice really grow out of pain and silence? Or is that too much to hope for? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Share this video if it moved you. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories told in the spirit of Undercover Boss, Undercover CEO, and Celebrity Undercover stories that remind us not just of who we are, but of who we could be. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come with a sword. It comes with a choice.